If you're a person struggling right now with this networking issue, this is like a pandemic almost. What I mean by that is LinkedIn isn't working right now with AI and all of the saturation, and everyone thought that if I get a degree, I'm going to be successful. We have all been lied to, a lot of us at least. And what I mean by that is you have to do what 99% of people are not doing to get that 1% result. So when you were told is if you get a degree, you're going to be successful, but everyone else was told the same thing. So you need to go against the grain here. Don't follow the leader, make your own path. Did you know that there is literally 96% of people that have never even moved out of their country? That is an alarming statistic, because knowing that your chance of success is by the proximity of where you are, where you live, who you surround yourself with, you have to move. The one amazing thing about the human body, the human being, is the fact that you can move wherever, whenever, as far, for as long as you want, forever, by your choice. So when you are young, the great thing is, don't sign yourself up for liabilities. Figure out what it is you want out of life, for the most part, by traveling, experiences, meeting people. Figure out maybe where the location of your dream life is. Then you lock yourself down to a family and kids, a mortgage, cars, liabilities, etc. But when you're young, you have to just try everything. You got to go have fun. You got to go experience, because if you don't, things aren't going to really work how you're supposed to. And you're going to be sitting there with nothing but regret, and you're going to wonder why or how 10, 20, 30 years pass by, and you're that person that said, I'm going to leave my hometown. I am not going to be at the local bar, and I'm going to do something with my life. But now you're 30 years later and older, and nothing changed. If you don't make that conscious decision of having a plan, applying action, and moving, nothing changes. To get something you never had, you have to do something you never did. So let me start here with being the bearer of bad news, the truth of all of this. People that get the best opportunity is because of the sake of their network and their resources. So if you're born poor and you're surrounded by poor people, what makes you think you're going to be rich? If you're rich and you're surrounded by rich people, being poor is probably not in your deck of cards. I'm not saying that there's something that can't be broken, but it's really hard. And you need to acknowledge that is the hierarchy of life. This is how we all get by, and the working ants and bees going around in this huge circle we can't explain. But when you have all of this stuff, you acknowledge all of this stuff, now you can change this stuff. Now you can make a plan. But don't be oblivious to it. Don't say, oh man, the world's corrupt and all of this stuff and nothing's going to change. Well, if you have that mindset, then nothing's going to change. But if you say, hey, the deck of cards aren't that good, but what if I can break it? What if I be a little bit unconventional? Let me tell you a quick story. Out of all the successful people that I've literally talked to that are mentors, read about, or listened, thousands of hours of research, it came down to a couple things. They were all unconventional. And a lot of them, they were actually poor. They didn't have network or resources. And from the start, they were critical, free thinkers. They did not follow the paradigms or structures that society has given them. They broke it. They balled it up in a piece of paper, threw it out, they restarted. So what I mean by this with this story is starting with Steve Jobs. When he wanted a job, they weren't going to give it to him. No one was answering. He went in that office. He sat in the lobby and said, I'm not leaving until someone comes down and gives me an interview. Now, for most people, this would not work. Because even if someone does meet with you, you better be really good, because now you just opened the door with a really, really tough start. He got the job. You look at a couple other people that have done stuff, they always did something that people said is crazy, unconventional, but that's what works. You're taught in school that if you cheat, you're a bad guy or a bad girl. But in real life, bending the rules a little bit with still keeping the ethic and morals and a spine in your back and not screwing people over, you will be more successful. You do not do what everyone else does and expect to have the one result that all of them don't have. There's a reason for that. That is the law of motion. That is the law of nature. That's the laws of the universe. So let me paint a picture for all of you. When you look at just networking and resources, it's no different than planets with their orbit. You have to break out of that orbit to get into these new circles. Now, how is that? You maybe have to move to New York or these high prominent cities that are great in finance if that's a route you want to go into. If you want to go in acting, you got to go where the most successful people are to get into acting. If you want to be a great actor and you see California and New York are the best art schools, You're not going to get much opportunity in North Dakota or something. So you got to make it, unless you run into like a very serendipitous, situation, and you run into someone and they're a director and for some reason they're in the middle of nowhere. That's luck. But let's change luck in your favor. Let's bend it, right? And that's what people mean when opportunity meets preparation. When you do this with the location, the proximity of other people, it's inevitable that you're going to make it. Another example, Monaco is one of the wealthiest places in the world. If you want to be successful or learn about success, go to Monaco. If you only have $500, $1,000, I don't know how much the plane flights are, depends where you are. Wipe your account, go be a yacht boy or yacht girl, right? Go be a server. Do anything just to get into those areas. Everything's gonna work out. Now, towards the end of this, I want to talk about actually the real cheat code of all of this. But what you really want to do also is build value of your own. You don't want to just be the person that has energy and taking all the time, because the more you give, the more you get. But in the beginning, when you're young, it's okay to be curious and a little weird and do whatever it takes to be in that proximity and figure out if those are circles and locations that you even want to be in. Create a life in and actually have something worth living. When you see all of these other planets with the orbit of these different social circles, you have to acknowledge that a lot of them have been with each other for years. What I mean by that is I've heard a lot of stories, unfortunately, of people that are very exceptional, intelligent people that get to Ivy League, but when they're there, they're like the outsiders. They realized it wasn't about the hard work that got them there. A lot of these children and kids, whatever, they knew each other since middle school. They built these brotherhood and sisterhoods since they were literally like adolescents. Now they're in Ivy League about to go into the real world and make a bunch of money. When they graduate, do you think they're gonna hire the intelligent, most skilled, talented person? Or are they gonna hire the person that they knew since middle school and high school? You have the answer right there. Unfortunately, that is the reality of the world. So knowing that if you might not be the person that's smart enough or have the resources to get to Ivy League or places that are gonna help you excel up this social status, hierarchical world, you got to be unconventional. You got to bend the rules. You got to be an entrepreneur. Maybe you got to go in locations that the route or career identification that you want to be is there. Then it's all going to happen. It's all going to work out. Eventually it will. So let's get into some unhinged, uncaged, and maybe unethical ways to actually get to where you want to be. Starting with number 1. This is handwritten letters. This is something that I'm going to be making a video on just to prove that this works. What I mean by that is write the letters of who you are and you just want to learn from someone. There's a couple, maybe 10 people that are the most inspiring to you. Write a letter to them, send it to maybe their HR, send it to maybe their secretary or whatever. Send it to their house if you can figure out their summer home or home at their address. Don't put it in their mailbox, but go to the post office if you have the address and it's public, send it to their house. So what I'm doing out here in Wisconsin and Chicago, out of the 1,000 to 2,000 most successful people that are millionaire and billionaires, I wrote a very personal and dedicated message that I can also show you the transcript here today to show you proof that I am applying action with this, that I'm sending to all of them. And out of the 1,000 to 2,000 people, you don't think at least one person is going to respond? I'll probably have 100 and I'm going to have my weeks booked to just sit down with them and learn their wisdom. Because if there's one shortcut to success, it's wisdom. If there's a second one, it's your network. And if there's a third one, it's your resources. So you have to do these unhinged ways to actually change something of where you are now to where you want to be. So moving on to the most unhinged method, number 2. I've used it myself. It is a superpower. This is the social network. For example, if you want to get to an investor, if you want to get to maybe a famous person, sports player, whatever, when you follow them, usually they don't follow you back. Why is that? Sometimes they're just busy and their notifications are spamming, but typically it's because you do not have some sort of rapport with them, some sort of credibility. How do we get this credibility for them to follow you back? The answer is mutuals. So when you look at the sports person, investor, or business person you're trying to get to, look at their friend group. Look at the people they hang out with. Look at the restaurant they may eat at on a common basis. Follow those people. Usually they'll follow you back because you're on the same like social status level maybe. When they follow you back and then you follow the person you're trying to get to, they'll be like, why does Jeff follow him? Why does Susan? Social media is so busy. Usually people don't go out of their way and say, hey, do you know so-and-so? You follow them or blah, blah, blah. Sometimes it happens, but usually it doesn't. When you build this, now people are going to start following you because now you have some sort of like social proof. That is a cheat code that has worked, and it'll get you into circles that you never even imagined. And if it's not working, it's because you also have to have some sort of social presence yourself, personal branding. If you have no posts on your Instagram, how are people going to even know who you are? So have just enough that makes people interested and almost mysterious, and you're going to attract. You're going to get into these networks on the social, and the only step from the social to then in real life is then you just applying a DM, sending them a message, sending them a compliment. But also, to conclude this, don't have them follow you back or follow someone right away and then have an offer or an ask right away. That is the biggest secret of this. When you give more than you receive, people want to be around you. You also don't want to just like contact people to be transactional or an opportunist. If you build real relationship, all the other stuff will come separate. The most successful relationships, network, etc. that I have in my circle has always been because I actually built a real relationship and rapport with a person. Everything else came after. So do that, and all of that will come super simple. I mean, just to end this with a couple of examples, I've had the owner of Jimmy John's, creator that's a billionaire, reach out to me. I've had billionaires nonstop of like their grandson or their kid or blah, 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 all reach out to me on social media just because of me following someone they knew or even a social presence myself. So it does work, and I'm here to tell you that. So that's number 2, and there's 5 here. So starting with you're not starting, but at least moving on to number 3, calculated serendipitous interactions. Use this one with a grain of salt. This is not my advice. This is not coming from me. I'm just regurgitating something from the universe for this number step. What I mean by that is this is like a Joe Goldberg, the show You type of style, where whoever you're trying to get to, you almost legally stalk them, figure out where their whereabouts are, maybe what sports team they like. For example, if you have an interview at a job, maybe study the person that's going to be interviewing you out of the HR. Maybe there's 3 HR ladies you see on LinkedIn. One likes the Bears, one likes the Packers, one doesn't like football at all. Say it's the person that likes the Bears. You throw in a little bear comment in there to kind of warm her up. That's going to help you get to then the next hiring process person. That's kind of weird, and it might seem weird, but that's unconventional, and what some of the most successful people do is breaking the rules a little bit, where it's still ethical, a little weird sometimes, but all weird people are also very successful, to get the opportunity. Because say you take 2 people, for example. You have the person that does not study the company before an interview, doesn't study any of the people in the company, versus the person that is now knowing the people in the company, knowing the company's mission statement, etc. Who's going to win? It's the person that psychoanalyzed the people that are going to interview. It's the person that studied the company. My fiance makes jokes all the time. She goes, if you were to try to get a job, you'd probably get almost any job you wanted to. And I said, well, love, that's why I'm an entrepreneur, because jobs are very easy. It's very easy because it's psychology. You study people and you sell. When you're in an interview, what you're doing is selling yourself. The best salesmen, or females, it's no wonder why they're most successful in corporate, jobs, or business. Because sales is like the last step you need before marketing and becoming an entrepreneur. The only separation is usually you're not taking a risk on a business or financial risk. Number 4, this is a cheat code. I've also done this before, is social media. For example, for some reason when you have a social media presence, if you're creating content, a podcast, whatever it may or might be, for some reason you just have an automatic excuse in the social standards today to create a random interaction with people that's going to last into a connection or network. What I mean by this is, say you're a photographer or videographer. When you go up in public, you see those street, interviews and videos all the time on short form saying, hey, I'm a street photographer, can I get your picture? Just that little interaction leads to a conversation. Now, take that versus the person that just walks up to someone, compliments, and strikes up a conversation. Somehow we went wrong in today where we have to ask, how do we talk to people? How do we actually build a network or even a conversation with people? Because they have their AirPods in, they have earbuds, they're too busy, blah, blah, blah. The answer is you got to be creative here. We're all kind of weird and introverted now because of individualism, which is a topic for another day. And when we, guys, go with this and with this flow is with the social media, when you have things open, social presence, you have an excuse to start some sort of conversation with someone. And one last example here is I could show you, we went to Madison and a couple of colleges just for data to see if student debt is worth it or where it's going in America economically. When we asked people if they want to do interviews, we got flocked to like bees and a swarm of ants at us, or whatever analogy you want to look, and we didn't even have to really try. There's a couple people that didn't want to be interviewed or whatever, but for the most part, we had like just a paparazzi at all times coming to us just because we had a camera and we had a mission and everyone wanted to do it. So we all want to talk to people. We all want to network and get to know each other. But you have to be creative of how to get that initial spark. And that's the number 4 point to actually do this spark, to actually have something come from it. But moving on to the last point, number 5, the most important one. I've said this one before and I'll say it again. You attract what you are. Your energy is the superpower for networking and connection. When you have a connection with something, someone, everything else is history. It just comes extremely easy, like 1 + 1 = 2. When you do this, it works. It works. Be a good person. Be the person you'd want to be around. Be the person that is just leaving always an impression. The person that gives when not expected. All that stuff will come back to you. And you'll be paid in great proportion of that. And actually leave you with the logistic one of number 5, beyond even just the energy, but just where you are today, if you're a little introverted and you're scared to kind of take these other 4 steps, is the snowball effect. What is the snowball effect with networking? So you start with like 3 layers of people that you know. The first layer is your family and friends. The second layer is their mutuals, and the third is the mutuals, or references from the mutuals. So there's 3 stages here and even more. When you connect with one person that has 500 friends, now you have 501 possibilities, not just one. And I knew this with business. I did this with actually a light show in my area. What I did here was I built a following of 1,000 people that were friends and family first before I did any marketing. I connected with just the friends and family because then I knew when I post a video and throw in ads, I have 1,000 people I know that want to support, while also random people with the marketing that causes a snowball effect. And I don't know if I told any of you, but just those $3,000 I put into ads reached over 3 million people in about 2 years of business in a family-friendly event in a small town. That's called the snowball effect. Now imagine with networking, that's not even just a business. When you want to do something, if you want to become an electrician in the trades, if you want to go to college in finance, if you want to start a business, figure out what that is first with what you want. Ask your friends and family if they're not in any of the routes, if they know someone in those routes, and then ask those people. It's not weird to ask, hey, do you know anyone in this route? And if they don't, do you know anyone in the route? Or if you meet someone that's in the route, after you build that connection, ask if they know someone that they would like to refer you to get even a better perspective. Now you start snowballing. It's not weird to network. You just have to do it right. You have to be the person, like I said, that gives more than you take and just high energy. Because no one cares in the end of the day. If you're a high energy person and they just can't help you, they'll be like, yeah, sorry I couldn't help you, but you're a great person, you're ambitious, you're unconventional, but that's why you're gonna be successful. And I've heard that 10, probably 100, 1,000, literally probably 1,000 times I've heard that throughout my life, from when I was even selling lemonade without even a permit. I guess you're supposed to have a permit. I had a couple local town sheriffs stop by and say, yeah, you're supposed to have a permit. It's like, you're gonna tell an 8-year-old I can't make money? So, and this was what, I don't even know, 2000 whatever. So look at economics now. So looking back there, I mean, times were really rough. But I started with like even just the lemonade stands, the landscaping businesses, about being 11, 12, 13 years old, handing out flyers to kind of get the ball moving, all the way to real businesses today, from online to brick and mortar. And when that happens, it all just kind of comes your way. And along all of this journey and process of entrepreneurship, or just anything I've pursued, I've always heard from people. You always leave an impression. You are always just ambitious. You're always just hustling, or you're an entrepreneur at heart. And it was always positive things. I never actually heard from someone that I couldn't do anything. And that's rare. I hear a lot of times where they're like, everyone around me says, I can't do that, or I doubt that. Or, haters, I guess, essentially. I've never heard that. And the reason I think I've never heard that is because people saw and felt something that I have that most people don't. What that is self-belief. I never thought I could not do something because of my loving mother. That was unconditional love. And she always just would tell me, you can do whatever you want. You just have to apply the action. You have to have belief and take one day at a time. So her saying that to me literally just kind of gave off that like energy throughout all of my life where people didn't even question it. Because the thing is, what I say, what I do, yada yada, literally is what I believe. So from the outside, 8 billion people could tell me what you're doing is wrong. But as long as I believe I'm right, then I'm right. Now that's delusion, but has any person that is not delusional really done something that is actually worth living, worth being monumental? Probably not. You have to have delusion. You have to have the good people around you, eliminate the little vampires and the bloodsuckers and the people that aren't doing anything, the low energy, because the faster you do that, then you're networking with the people that are aligned with what you want to do, your dream life, the dream you. So in a synopsis of all this with a personal story and these unhinged methods or whatever, again, do not come back at me if this goes wrong. That is all of you. This, like I said, this has come from the universe, and maybe I drank too much Fiji water here because I don't know what's going on. I'm crazy. That's not on me or financial advice. I'm not trying to get sued here. There's no money even coming in yet from this AdSense. But other than that, I want to conclude this with like the synopsis. You have to move. Wherever your dream life is, wherever you want to go, you have to move there. Okay? Move as fast, as far, and as frequent as you can. And that will all come back to you in a very successful way. Building those experiences, building those relationships, locations, you'll have more opportunity. Because one last thought process I'll give you all today. If you're the person that does everything by the book, that stays in the hometown, goes to a college that's local, saves the money, you're probably going to get that job, and that's your life. But imagine being the person that does not go to college, that doesn't stay in the hometown, that travels, that builds a bunch of relationships, and is always switching locations. Now you're an object that has more opportunities. Because if you're the person that just stays in the opportunities around you, the proximity, like the beginning of this video, all the way to the person that just travels and just does everything unhinged, the world's your oyster. The only stressor that you will actually have then is figuring out what opportunity or life or thing you want to actually apply to. So you'd rather be in that boat rather than the individual that is like, I can't do a lot of this because I don't know anyone in that field. I don't know anything other than what I'm doing. And you probably hear that all the time. So don't be that person. At the end of the day, life is short, 8,760 hours per year. You sleep a third of that. You really don't have that much time. So get off of this discussion, video, whatever you're listening, watching, or both, and go apply the action because the network is out there. You just have to find it. Other than that, my friends, I hope this helped in some way. Leave me some tips or tricks or anything else you'd like me to go into. And I guess in the end, too, if there's anything intricate with relationship or whatever, I also have a website in short form for more entertainment or help. Other than that, my friends, I'll see you on the next one.